Alright, hopefully the wind isn't horrible, so that way I don't have to redo this. But today we're going to take a look at the future food forest, or the sort of work in progress food forest. This whole area used to be pretty thick. Honestly, all of this pretty much looked like that over there, which is just a big mess of honeysuckle, which you can see is flowering now. There's a ton of dead ash trees. There's honestly still just a couple left up here that I want to take out before I start planting in there. And then a lot of buckthorn. As you can see here, there's a lot of dead wood that we cleared out of here. And there's still a lot more that we have to do, but it's getting there. So this whole area used to be a farm, believe it or not, like 30, 40 years ago or something like that. So it used to be tilled, and they had corn here at some point, which is kind of crazy how fast trees can just grow up and make it look not like that anymore. But there's definitely still some little like drainage things and like ditches that used to be there. It would probably have been more obvious when it was tilled and clear. But then it turned to forest, or mostly buckthorn, and now we're re-clearing it again, so hopefully I can put some other little sturdier species and trees that we can use for food. So yeah, this whole place pretty much just looked like that, and now it's slowly but surely getting more open. Let's take a look over here. In this area, I planted a bunch of pawpaws and like a couple apple trees back there. The pawpaws I grew from seed from just a bunch of like cultivars and their seedlings. So they're coming up. They're pretty small right now. They're probably not gonna do too terribly much this year, but they're mulched, they're protected with the tree tube. They should be able to grow up at least a little bit, and then really next year they should start taking off. Hopefully I'll have some fruit within like 5 years or so. I have like a dozen kind of poked in along the side and down a row here. And then I'm probably going to plant like 30 or so more of them. I think that's about how many I have left. And then I also have a bunch of 1-year-old seedlings in a bed, but those are nowhere near close to being ready to plant out in their places. This area, there's actually a few Scots pines in here, which now that the grapevines are off of them and they're getting a little more light, I think they might start to kind of recover a little bit. Those main big trees over there, those are black walnuts. They're really late to leaf out, so I think that this area would be pretty good to put pawpaws in, because it'll cast a little bit of shade, but not too much that they can't fruit. So now I'm working my way down the hill. This area is actually a little more forested. There's mostly red maples. There's a couple of honey locust, a couple random crab apples mixed in there, and a lot of dead ash. So I'm just gonna slowly work on getting the ash out of there, let the maples grow, and sort of let that be an actual forest. This spot over here was my experimental frog hole. I dug like 3.5, 4 feet deep in the middle. It's about like 8 feet wide, going the long way, maybe like 4 feet wide this way. There were frogs in it earlier. I don't see any right now though. But the soil here, after you go about a foot deep, kind of just turns into clay. I'm using most of the nice topsoil from this to make mounds for planting on in the wetter areas. But then there's a lot of this clay. I'm not entirely sure what to do with this, but I might just, I don't know, cover it with wood chips, plant something, see what grows. It'll turn to soil eventually if I had enough wood chips, which is sort of what I did here. I took the nastiest, stickiest clay, threw it there, gave it a few inches of chips, and I don't know what I'll stick in there, but yeah, if you have any ideas, let me know. This is the last area I was working on clearing. I think this would be the good pawpaw patch, since it's kind of low, it's a little wet. It's sort of the most similar area to where I've seen pawpaws in the wild back when I was in Missouri. But we'll see if, I think they'll do good here. I'll probably put them on little mounds and give them a whole lot of wood chips, and then eventually I'll use some seaweed. I got a whole bunch of seaweed last year from them clearing out one of the lakes out here, and they kind of just dump that off and you can use it as fertilizer. So it worked really well for squash, so I'm sure it'll do pretty good for trees too. Just have to clean up all these stumps, the rest of these branches. I think I might burn that pile. I did leave a lot of brush to just sit there, but this area, it's kind of hard to drag to the side, so I think I might burn that pile, which I don't always like burning, because it is nice to just let the organic matter be, feed the soil, feed the bugs, but I have a whole brush wall somewhere else, so yeah. This next section here is hazelnuts and aronia berries. So these hazels were planted just this spring as little bare root trees. I put them on mounds of wood chips, and it seems like they're gonna do well this year. This area, there's a couple little wet spots, so I wanted them to be elevated. I didn't want to like risk having any root rot issues, but I think they'll do pretty well. So that's a hazel. In between, I have aronia. These are little seedlings from like a edible garden I picked a bunch of fruit from at a park nearby. So they actually grew pretty well last year. Then they got nipped back by rabbits over the winter to like that tall or so, and now they're suckering and they're making multiple stems, which I think that's kind of what aronias want to do anyways. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 aronia bushes, and then like 30 something hazels through here. So I'm thinking this will probably make a good amount of food once things get established. These are all, actually they're not all of those, that batch in the back and that other batch across the trail that way, those are American European hybrids, and then a lot of the ones right in this section, like with that tall tree tube there and that one there, they're Turkish tree hazel and a little bit of European and maybe a little bit of American too. But they're all supposed to be resistant, or at least tolerant, to eastern filbert blight. So I think we'll probably have to give it a few years to even see if we get any at all out here, because I haven't really seen any hazels around in the brush. But yeah, I'm really excited for those to get going. And you're probably seeing a lot of wood chips around here. We know a tree guy and he needs somewhere to dump it, so we just have him dump right at the driveway and we'll just bring it down here in a trailer. And it is definitely nice to be able to use this. It's like, this batch is mostly ash, so it's actually like, looks kind of similar to like playground chips. But I've had other loads that were more leafy or more like a shredded spruce tree. I use that for the garden, and it is really nice. Like, it's kind of beautiful not needing to water at all. Like, last year I grew my squash and tomatoes and what else? Like my figs and everything, and just had like, I don't know, 8 inches of wood chips on them, and I didn't water at all after I planted things. So it's definitely a game changer if you could find a good source of wood chips. So what next? Yeah, this area out there is still pretty open. I still have a ton of persimmons and blackberries, raspberries, honeyberry. I want to do a sea buckthorn planting out here. I was thinking along the back there, I have these plants. They're Sorbus domestica. It's like sort of like a mountain ash, but they make these bigger fruits that are somewhat like a tiny apple or a pear, and they're supposed to be good for cider. So they'll grow into like a big timber tree. So I was thinking of putting them in the back, like along the line there, and seeing how big those will get. Yeah, there's a lot to plant and a lot to work on. So one of the things I'm doing is trying to save some of the native species that are in here. So like there's quite a few of these, not buckthorn, hawthorn, growing all over the place. And this one's just like nice shape, got a nice trunk, opens up as it gets taller. It was right next to a cedar, and I think that probably gave it a lot of like cedar apple rust, or well, cedar hawthorn rust, if that's a thing. But it has a lot of like weird deformed growth. But after I took that out, I'm hoping the disease inoculum kind of goes away. But all the growth this year looks healthy so far, so I'm hoping that does good. But I don't know if you could see, the property line is kind of right, like, I don't know, maybe 15 feet after the like tree wall back there. And that's where the buckthorn starts picking back up again. It's pretty buckthorny, all in there, and all back that way. So that's a summer project. I want to have a forestry mulcher guy come through and hopefully clear like an acre or two, just to have it opened up again. It'd be nice to like actually be able to see back here, because there, believe it or not, there is like an acre or two of pines all like in the back corner, but you just can't see them since the brush wall is too thick. Whoa, bird. Almost stepped on a bird. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be walking through the tall grass because the ticks are out, but I haven't really got them too bad here yet. Ooh. More hazelnuts. The bare root hazelnuts are waking up. I'm hoping that if these grow well this year, they might make a couple of nuts next year. I don't know if that's too ambitious, but I mean, some of them are like 4 feet tall. These ones are, what is that, 3 feet tall. I think they could do it. Yeah. Some of the areas here do not drain the best. Like this patch over here, there's just like these big ruts. Once we cleared the brush out of the way, I don't know where that came from, but it wasn't really driving through here, so, or nobody had been driving through here for like 30 years, so I don't know. I'm gonna probably have to level it out. I dump a shit ton of wood chips everywhere, see if that can sort of even the ground out. Now, there are actually a lot of hickory coming up. There's a couple shagbark trees in the back. I'm not sure what type of hickory this is, just by looking at seedlings. But it would be nice to try to protect some of those while I'm taking out more of the brush. Like all this buckthorn and a lot of the silky dogwood. That's hopefully gonna be cut out, and we'll let everything else grow. Another hickory in there. I don't know if you can see that right in the middle. This is the other culprit around here. We got honeysuckle as far as the eye can see. And another non-native, but one I'd like to keep around. There's all these Scots pine or Scotch pine, and these are just dumping their pollen right now. I wonder, kind of curious if you can poof it. Nah. Actually, I guess they just finished dumping their pollen. But they're kind of cool trees. I'd like to let them grow. If I could free this one up a little bit, maybe it would appreciate that. But this is actually one of the bigger ones. What else? And we have autumn olive. There's really not too much of this around here, and I might keep a few of them alive. Even though they're invasive, they make good fruit. They smell really nice in the spring, and I could probably put or start grafting a couple little goomy branches onto it. I think I've heard of people doing that. More hickories. Hickory all the way up there. Yeah, that would look nice if I could clear out the tree line over here and make it just big old hickories, because those turn a really nice color in the fall and they make nuts. This one is starting to look like a shag. It's got the big plates of bark kind of flaking off. It's pretty cool. So I guess that's how big they are when they start getting shaggy. Neat. Cool, I'm gonna work my way back up. So yeah, there's still so much space in here. Like, once you take out the few little like dead ash trees that are hanging out in here, and the little scraggles of buckthorn that are still left, it's honestly kind of a lot of space. Like, I could fit in a bunch of persimmons, maybe do like a spruce windbreak or white pines or something. I don't know what to do with this big aspen. I feel like that one, like, it's a cool tree, but it's also got some like little rotting spots at the base already. So I know it's only a matter of time until that wants to come down, and it would suck if I had just got a nice big planting of berries or nuts and like cool long-lived trees right underneath it, and then if it just took out like a dozen of them while it fell. But yeah, I guess I might clear that one out of here. I kind of feel bad about it, but it's not like I'm not planting anything else in its place. And there's some more back over that way somewhere. But maybe I could think about like coppicing it, or leaving like if I leave a tall stump, it'll make a whole lot of little shoots If I let those grow, I could probably use them as stakes or try to do something useful. But it's a nice tree. There's just so much ash you have to pick up still. Sorry if I'm just complaining about that too much, but it's what I got. In this area, we're at a burn pile. There's all these little seedlings coming up in here. I'm not really sure what these are. Part of me wants to say it's purple loosestrife, which would make sense because I think there were a couple out here, but it seems like that's a lot. So hopefully it's something else. If anybody knows what this is, let me know. And then I'll know if I should maybe weed whack it a little bit and plant something else there. But I definitely want to plant a different ground cover in here. Maybe get some clover seed and throw that around. All right, working my way back up the hill. So one thing that's kind of interesting out here is how much grape there is everywhere. There's just wild grapes growing on basically any branch they can scramble onto. So where there was a dead ash tree, it doesn't really seem like it's dead because there's so much green growing on it. So you just get these walls of grape. So something I want to try doing this year is using the grape leaves, since a lot of these, I mean, they'll still expand out to the size of my hand. I feel like I should be cooking with those. But yeah, since I've got in here to clear things out, I mean, I've been pulling tons of vines. Like that pine would have been covered in grapes. That maple behind it would have been covered with grapes. That dead ash is still covered with grapes. And here, I should actually get closer to this because it's kind of absurd when you take a look at it. Like, this one isn't even one of the biggest ones, but that's how thick the stump is on the grape. That's like the size of my arm. So I think I'm gonna plant some grapes somewhere over this way because I think they'd probably do well. But yeah, I know this is a little different from my typical video format, but I figured I'm doing kind of a lot of work right now and I want to make a video about that. And I don't really feel like doing anything super meticulous and detailed. So instead, I think I can handle wandering around and saying, hey, look at that pawpaw. So that one's coming up good. This one's coming up good. That one's starting to leaf out. It looks like slugs ate it or something, but yeah. It'll be a fun project. I'm excited to see what it looks like in 5 years. So I have this other section of the garden that's closer to the house. This is where I grew my figs last year. And I covered them with a lot of wood chips and now uncovered them, and it seems like a lot of them are coming back pretty nicely. Nice new growth here and here. So it is kind of cool. We did have a pretty mild winter, so I wasn't really expecting anything to be dead when I uncovered things. But that's actually kind of a nice amount of growth. And these things have crazy root systems. I had dug out a couple of them and moved them somewhere else. So this one, what is this one? This one's Mitica White. This is Owensboro Dark, I think, or something, and the classic Chicago Hardy. This didn't actually have any dieback. I mean, I cut it back a little bit, but like even on these branches, they're still budding out at the tips. This one still leafing out right there. I don't know if I'm gonna get Braba or anything off of it, but it's doing pretty good. And all these rocks I had found digging out this garden here, this whole patch of wood chips and everything used to be just like a big honeysuckle thicket, and then I ripped it all out, turned it into a garden. But most of these rocks came from right there. Since I think when this was a farm, they just threw the rocks right here. So I think these will help give the figs a little bit of extra heat. This one, okay, is just starting to wake up. So they're not all woken up completely yet, but they're working on it. My Jerusalem artichoke patch, I need to move some of them. I was too late and they moved into the pawpaw seedlings. So I'm probably going to regret that later. They're coming up in this fig over here, but this fig is also waking up. This area I didn't completely wood chip, and that was a mistake. So this is what it looks like when you till, and that's what it looks like when you use wood chips. So one of these, at least from a weeding perspective, is better than the other. So I'm definitely going to just smother all those with cardboard and try to chunk it up a little better and cover it with weeds. Or not cover it with weeds. Cover it with wood chips so I can kill the weeds. I've got a bunch of elderberry. This one is Bob Gordon, and it better fruit this year. It's getting pretty big. And this one is a Pocahontas, and it's got this one like main vertical one that is no longer vertical, but it's also sending out a bunch of like these massive juicy stalks. Like, that's crazy. So I think this one will for sure fruit this year. And I'm excited for it to grow so that way I can at least take some more cuttings from it. And then over here I have just like a couple cuttings that I had taken from some elderberries I found at some parks around here. They seem to ripen evenly and have good fruit, so I figured why not take a cutting. So hopefully that one grows. It is interesting that this has it has more bug damage. That one has more bug damage. This one is like perfectly pristine and clean. Same with that, that's pretty clean. This one, beautiful. This one also has a little bug munch, so I don't know. I've got a big wall of thornless blackberries. I noticed one of them over here and like there had a little bit of orange rust, so I ripped those out as soon as I found that out. So hopefully it doesn't spread to the rest of these, but these seem pretty sturdy. I don't really know what they are. I just got them from somebody on Craigslist who was giving them away because they had taken over their whole yard, and I figured, yeah, why not? So I've got a big wall of them, and I'm hoping to get at least a little bit of fruit this year, since I put them in last year and they put out a lot of growth, and they fruit on these the branches that come off of the second year wood. So this is one of last year's canes here, and they should fruit or flower and fruit off of that, but no flower buds yet. Soon though. Bunch of random wildflowers, mountain mints, smell really good. Joe Pye weed, nettles, lots of nettles. No garden is complete without stinging nettles. If you know, you know. Alright. Maybe one more stop. Boop. Honey locust pods. Those are all in the compost pile, since this is actually at my in-laws, and they have a couple big trees right by the yard, like front of the house, and they dump a lot of pods. So I have to actually figure out something to do with them. They produced a lot last year, so they might not produce as much this year, but recipes, send them. So the whole view of the future pawpaw farm looking good. Just need like 2 or 3 or 4 more ash trees out of here, and then I can go to town with planting. Walking through the yard. Alright. And then over here we have our baby Sorbus domestica trees and some nice seedling pawpaws. Also a couple random hickory seedlings, so these will have to get planted out soon.